welcome to the apiary. It's spring 2024. I'm just going to go over the hive build, this horizontal Langstroth hive that I built over the last couple weeks. Kind of go over the design, purpose, and what makes it different than the vertical Langstroth hives, the traditional Langstroth hives that are behind me. This hive is made to use Langstroth deep frames, just like the hives here, and that means that it respects what's called bee space. Bees like a space of 3/8 of an inch to move about the hive. Anything larger than that, they'll fill with honeycomb or just comb, and anything smaller than 3/8 of an inch, they'll fill with a bee glue called propolis. So this hive design came from Frederick Dunn. He's got his own YouTube channel and website, and this design specifically, he designed it, and it's got a lot of little neat aspects to it that differs from other hives, so we'll go over that. It's made with 2x12s, so it adds that extra bit of insulation for over the winter. It's a little thicker than the 1-inch wood that's used on the traditional Langstroths that you can buy commercially. And it also has this additional shim on the bottom. It's made with 2x4s. Now this gives them extra space down below. It helps prevent swarming, it gives them more room. And these frames sit in this hive going like this, so you can see that there's this extra space. They'll build more comb down because this space is greater than 3/8 of an inch, and they'll fill that comb with what we call drone comb. So drone comb is the male bees, and as you may or may not know, there's a big mite problem here. It's a mite that came from the Asian honeybee, and now it's here in the US for the last couple decades or few decades. And they really like to live in and feed on the baby drones. So once that drone comb gets built out and there's drones in the bottom, you can cut that out and eliminate some of that mite load. That's called integrative pest management. It's just a strategy. There's multiple strategies to reducing that mite load throughout the season. So that's really neat that the shim's going to be present, and I'm really excited to use that. We have a 4 to 6 inch opening here. It's a single entrance, and then a little visor there to keep the rain from going in that entrance. I used 4-inch gate hinges, and that opens up this way. On the back side, I'll show you the latches that we decided to use. I got this design by making a fractal wood burning machine by ripping out a transformer from an old microwave. If you're gonna do that, please research it heavily. There's a lot of safety precautions that you need to take if you're gonna make your own and operate a fractal wood burner. I added a copper strip here on top to prevent any water from getting in where these two pieces of wood meet. And then I covered the whole hive with 3 coats of spar urethane, and it should hold up pretty well. That's what I did on the other hives behind me, and they've held up 3 years so far. So far so good. Let's take a look at the back side, and we'll get in the hive and see what's going on over there. All right, so this is the side view and the rear view of the hive. I'll explain the purpose of this hole here in a few minutes. It helps the bees get out if they get trapped in this upper attic area. You'll get a better idea once you get a visual. And then on the back side, you can see those 4 hinges. They are adjustable so that when this lid closes, it sits flush with this piece of wood. Should the wood warp over time, you can tighten or loosen those. And that's all there really is to it as far as the back side of the hive. So let's open it up and see what we've got going on inside. All right, we got the hive opened up here, and now you can see this can be thought of as a house. All right, so this is the living space, this is the ceiling, and then this is kind of like an attic. So the ceiling is removable. We don't want the bees living up in this area. They'll put comb everywhere and make a mess. So they're gonna be living down below here. And I built in this chain here to keep that lid from falling back. I've installed all this double bubble insulation just to help throughout the summer and winter, keep the heat out during the summer and the cold out during the winter. And we mentioned this hole on the side. So let's say I'm working the bees, and then I'm done with my inspection. I shut these boards, put the ceiling back for them. There's still a few bees up here. I don't want to spend a bunch of time trying to get them out, so I can just shut the lid and leave that hole open. They'll see the sunlight throughout the day, and bees are drawn to that sunlight. They use it for direction. That's why if you get a bee in your house, it'll be flying into the window because it's trying to get out to where that sun, they can see the sun a little better, so they can exit that way. And if I was to be doing an inspection, I take all the ceiling boards off of where I'm looking, and I'll show you the other side of this in just a moment where I have some actual frames in, and I can work the bees individually. I don't have to lift a bunch of these at a time to disturb many bees at once. I can really just focus on the frames that are underneath one or two of these boards at one time, and then replace it as I move along. So it doesn't disturb the bees as much as the traditional Langstroth hives, which is nice. Frederick's design also has this chain locker here, which is really nice. As you shut this, it just falls down the side there. So let's take a look at the left side of the hive, kind of get down into it so you can get a better idea of how the bees are going to be living in here. Okay, so we're working the left end of the hive. If we were to look at the front of the hive, the entrance would be right over here. And so I'm going to remove this feeder for now. We don't need it. I just have it out here because I will need it here this spring to help build up the colony by supplementally feeding. Is that a word? Supplementally? Supplemental feeding the colony as flowers start to produce nectar. They're going to need some sugar before that. So I can give them some sugar water in here and they can access it through this hole. So let's say I'm doing an inspection, see how the bees are doing. I take the ceiling off here. Now the baby bees will be what we call brood, will be in these first few frames where that entrance is. As bees develop, they respirate faster, quicker than adult bees, so they need that air exchange near the entrance that comes in, all that breeze that comes in the entrance. So this is where you'll find the baby bees being developed. So you can take these frames out, you'd see baby bees on them, and then you can work your way down. Now, when you have a small colony, you don't want to give them all this space because they need to regulate the temperature of the space you give them. So this is a division board or a follower board, and this just keeps them contained to one end of the hive. As their colony expands in population, I can move this down and add more frames. But for now, if it's a small size colony, this is as much room as I'd give them to start. I might even take a few of these out. That way they don't have to worry about regulating the temperature of the whole right side of the hive. So that's what this is, the follower board. These are your frames, and there's that gap that sits below these frames where that 2x4 that we explained in the beginning, that shim, allows for extra comb building down below. And as the frames move on and the season gets more into late spring, early summer, there'll be a lot of flowers out in the environment. They'll be bringing in a lot of nectar, and those frames with all that nectar that they're turning into honey will go down this way to the right. So that's the inside of the hive here. There's only a few things that I would recommend if you're trying to build this hive. Just double check before you glue and screw everything together. Make sure your measurements are proper. For example, if you're putting the body together and these side walls are too far apart, these frames will fall right through because the grooves are too far spaced. So make sure you dry fit your wood together before you glue and screw it. Also, if you're going to stain this, it's much easier to stain the bottom of the box before you assemble it, because this thing it's got to weigh a couple 100 pounds. So it's not too fun trying to stain the bottom of this when it's all assembled. Those were the two things that I would do a little differently in the future. Other than that, I'm very excited about this build, and I cannot wait to throw some bees in it this spring. If you have any questions, comments, just leave them in the comments section. I'll also include a link to the plans for this hive if you want to take a look or even build it. Have any questions, I'm happy to help. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.